So we're going to start dissecting that. And also why you said that maybe COVID accelerated that digital transformation for you, since at 2019 you weren't allowed to move to the cloud, and maybe this just starting to open up. Curious, sir, would that move to the cloud first be going to find a public cloud provider to align with, or would it be more SaaS? Because there's a big difference between, hosting your infrastructure versus just hosting your applications.
Right. Yeah. And what we've found, at least in our opinion, is that the maturity of the data management, storage management, security,
Right.
all those tools for on-premise is very mature because, you're looking at 30 to 40 years of growing to that point. The cloud versions are very immature in our perception. So a lot of the new technologies being developed for cloud is already existing on-premise. So between that and the restrictiveness of the cloud options we have, and especially running a load in the cloud, we're putting our kind of toes in the water with software as a service initially.
Gotcha.
So our ERP system, our help desk system, we're moving to the cloud. Our documents and standard operating procedures, we're moving 3 to 4 applications to the cloud. It's kind of solidifying our identity and access management processes, making sure that's repeatable, and then we'll look at moving more aggressively towards the cloud.
All right, excellent. So data management, storage management, going to stay on-prem for right now. We're going to start dipping our toes into SaaS, and also a little bit more of the security for identity access. So let's start maybe with the enterprise application side on the SaaS side. The big three, and I'm sorry, I'm talking and I'm not showing the data here, so my apologies. The big three in that space are obviously Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday. I would imagine in your role, you don't have much use for a CRM and Salesforce. It's probably something you could do through just a Microsoft Active Directory and not need that outwardly facing. But unfortunately, an ERP is something you probably do need.
Yes.
Are you still working with maybe an Oracle on-prem, or are you maybe going with one of the newer names like Workday, which is aggressively trying to take over these type of ERP situations in the cloud?
Yep. So we touching on Salesforce briefly, we did just purchase Tableau. So we are using one of their products for a totally different vertical. It's a super product. But ERP, we started looking at ERP replacement almost 2 years ago, prior to all this starting. We were an Oracle on-premise customer, Kronos on-premise customer, a couple of other components. And we started looking out there, and Workday was the clear leader. So we went through the regular purchasing process and selected Workday. We were able to obtain very aggressive pricing from Workday because, to your point, they're very hungry to get into the government vertical, and there's not a lot of large footprints in our state. So they were very aggressive in landing us as a customer. So we signed the deal for a full end-to-end ERP implementation with Workday that should go live by the end of the year. So that's human capital management, finance, warehouse, every component of it we purchased.
All right, that's great. Let's just stay there for a second because we don't always get enough feedback on this, if you don't mind, Todd. I've heard from other people too that Workday basically knocked on their door and said, I'll throw you 40 free adaptive licenses if you sign up for the HCM or the financial component. Is that pretty much what happened to you?
No, we actually reached out to them when we were looking at products. Yeah, and so their aggressiveness was really in their price by, I think it's FSE, I think it's the increment. They were aggressive on that price. I mean, it wasn't yard sale cheap, but it was cheaper than is typical. So we bounce pricing models off of Infotech or Gartner Group. They'll kind of walk through and say if it's standard. And both of them challenged the pricing we sent them because it was below what they were used to seeing. So they gave us aggressive pricing that we locked in for 5 years. And really, it's been us that has asked for additional add-ons. So once we started the architect sessions, we stumbled across additional products that weren't in scope that we've tabled to purchase later. So one of them is their solution for legal offices. Another one is, I think, Prism, which is for budget reporting. So we've actually been driving the add-ons. They were just very aggressive in making it clear that this project would not fail. They would have executive leadership attention on it. They would walk us through selecting the right partner. They would be engaged, just more of a quality assurance than a discount, I guess, after the initial pricing.
All right, that's great. So TCO was in their favor, but also that level of service. Did you need to hire a systems integrator, or were they able to hold your hand to get this implemented and standing up?
They recommended a systems integrator that had
Okay.
done another municipality or a couple in Florida. So,
Right.
every state's different, and then Florida, every county is different. So, they recommended an integrator who we went with. So it's a full handheld implementation.
That's great. Now that it's stood up, how happy are you? Is it working? Is the functionality and feature set what you were hoping for?
We're still in the architect session,
Right.
so it won't go live until the end of the year. But so far, it is what we've expected. This is my third ERP in my career. Yeah, and I kept my job in all three of them so far, so that's good. So, that's one of the things our leadership team was great about, is we explained it and going in that, hey, this is less a software play and more of a business process organizational play. So the integrator has been very good about highlighting inefficiencies, and big shocker, they found inefficiencies in the government organization. But they've been very good about highlighting that and making appropriate changes, and our leadership has been, kind of falling in lockstep with that. So it's been very difficult, and it will be even more difficult, but we're excited about the end result.
All right, I appreciate that. I'm going to stay here for just one more question, because you said you did 3 other ERP implementations, and I've heard from many of your peers that an ERP implementation ages an IT executive by 10 years. So
Yeah.
the fact that you've lived through 3 of them, let's just talk about in the past, a lot of the on-prem ERPs, whether it be SAP, Oracle, a JD, Lawson, Infor, the ones that you and I grew up on many, many years ago.
Yep.
The problem with them was the level of customization that you had to do to fit your particular industry and your needs. And then when an update would come, you'd have the audit, you'd have how do you maintain and update with all that customization. So I do believe what Workday has going for it right now is that you don't need that level of customization, that it's extensible out of the box, and that if there is an update that's coming, it's not going to bite you in the butt, so to speak, next time around. I would love for you to refute that or agree with what I think is happening here, and why a SaaS ERP might be really taking over.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the biggest selling points, Workday was, as far as we could tell, the only product that was architected from the ground up as a cloud product.
Mm-hmm.
So it was designed with that in mind, and they have a single instance configuration where there is, theoretically, there's nothing that we could do as a customer to customize our way out of an operational update. So they fence you in. And that, coupled with, I learned from the first 2 that the kiss of death from the ERP implementation was when you try to customize the ERP software to match your processes, because that essentially defeats the purpose. So we went into this. Matter of fact, we made the integrator add it to their contract that any deviation for best practices require the change of management approved by our leadership team, basically.
Yeah, you've learned your lesson.
I watched a lot of VPs get fired.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wrote an article once that was titled "Customization is a 4-letter word."
Yep. Exactly.
It's going to come back to get you.
Yeah.
Real quickly, staying on enterprise apps, ServiceNow is the leading ITSM. In our data, however, overall spending velocity, the basically, which is measured by you and your peers, are basically stating they're kind of decreasing spend with ServiceNow and ITSM. And we've seen quite a few that are playing in there. Freshworks is one where you can see it's increasing from January levels, which means that you and your peers thought they would spend X in January, but they're actually spending more. Another one that we're seeing in that space that is gaining a lot of traction is Atlassian. Atlassian's a fantastic company that's really expanding, and they have, I believe it's called Jira Service Desk. So I'm curious, sir, there's no CIO in the world that doesn't care a little bit about their ITSM backbone. So I'm curious what you're thinking in this space. Does ServiceNow still have the lead? Is it more just for big companies with large budgets, or how do you view the ITSM landscape?
Yeah, so we dropped a ServiceNow competitor that we were using, and matter of fact, we're about 3 weeks from go live on Freshworks.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically because ServiceNow and Avanti and Cherwell, which Avanti just bought, are all in the very customizable. You can make it do anything you want to, but every customization is going to require professional services or full-time staff, or it's kind of the old 80s and 90s model.
Right.
Freshworks, I think, is eating everybody's lunch, and we select them because they support a direct user relationship. So when we went looking for a tool, one of our criteria was it has to have an online demo that you can start without any intervention. So you basically put your name and email in and you start using the software, because that was our benchmark to make sure we're getting software that we can maintain and that we could support and administer. And Freshworks had that. You go in and say, I'm interested, type in your email address, clicky, and you're in. And within 30 seconds, and I was able to, the dinosaur, the old man in the room, I was able to set up some orchestration logic and some filters and do kind of some neat scenarios that we had a quote that was going to take almost 40 service hours to implement in our existing one. I was able to do it in 12 minutes without reading the manual, watching the webinar, doing anything. So that's the benchmark that for the mid to smaller size companies, I think these other companies are going to hit, and the big ones aren't going to be able to get there.
That is such great feedback. This low code environment that these guys are rolling out, where even you and I could just go in and play and make things happen, is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's a huge cost saving. So we were able to get Freshworks for about what our maintenance renewal was for the predecessor, but I would have gladly paid double that, because I wanted to buy a car, not a chain of Napa auto parts stores, which is what we're getting with the other solutions.
And the predecessor was Avanti,
Yes.
Okay. And You know what? I'm so glad you brought it up, because earlier today I was looking at this. We hosted Cherwell about a year and a half ago. We had a great dinner in New York City, back when you were allowed to do that sort of thing. And they boldly claimed that we're coming after ServiceNow. And I remember looking at my colleagues across the tables, with kind of a side eye, saying, really? They're a small to mid player. Like, what are they talking about going after ServiceNow? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, and of course it's different, there's less citations. In April, we had 53 cite them, and it's only 36 now. But look at this difference. And I was going to ask myself, why? Where did it go from 18% to 42%? But I think you just answered it, because you're saying Avanti bought this.
Yep. That's my understanding anyway.
So it seems as if maybe it's Avanti customers were basically saying, well, now it's Cherwell.
Yes, they're in the process of integrating, and really Avanti, not to go down that rabbit hole, but they're kind of a conglomerate of a bunch of companies they bought. They're kind of that model where they start out as Landesk, and then they bought, server patching system and then automation system. So they're kind of the assembler of applications with a single pane of glass. So it's not unsurprising that they bought Cherwell.